All right, strap yourselves in because we are going deep on a story that feels like it's right out of a Hollywood movie, but it's all too real.
Yeah.
We're talking about the case of Jamie Buoie, a young woman who comes to L.A. looking to make it big, but ends up murdered.
Right.
And what we're going to do today is
Yeah.
really dig into all these documents you've shared with us.
Absolutely.
There's investigative reports and court documents, even
Yeah.
interview excerpts.
That's right.
And we're going to try to figure out how billboards
Mm-hmm.
and a show you might heard of called America's Most Wanted
Oh, for sure.
and A Wild Confession
Mm-hmm.
all played a part in cracking this case wide open.
You know what really grabs me about this case is how these seemingly random events, like finding Jamie's car in a totally separate investigation, ended up being like game changers.
Yeah.
It really shows you how important it is to have cops who are really good at their job and departments that actually work together.
Yeah, it's like connect the dots, but with like
Oh, yeah.
people's lives on the line.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I want to take a minute to talk about Jamie.
Sure.
She was 24 years old from Oklahoma. Super bright, bubbly,
Mm-hmm.
just out of college, ready to like take on the entertainment industry.
Right.
That kind of energy that just draws you in.
Oh, yeah. You can't help but root for him.
That was Jamie.
Yeah.
And she was super close with her brother, Brian,
Mm-hmm.
which made moving to L.A. even more special because he actually helped her pack up her little blue VW Beetle.
Oh, wow.
And remember that little blue VW Beetle that comes up again later?
Okay.
He actually drove with her from Oklahoma all the way to L.A.
See, that right there, that cross-country trip in a little VW Beetle, says so much about their relationship.
Totally.
It's not just about helping her get settled. It's like they shared this dream. He was looking out for her.
Totally. And Jamie was already doing pretty well for herself in L.A.
Oh, yeah.
She'd worked with some big names like Mel Brooks. I mean, imagine just starting out and you're already like hanging out with comedy legends.
Right.
She was living the dream. She was always calling Brian with funny stories from set.
Hmm.
It's tough thinking about how fast things went south.
It's one of those things, wrong place, wrong time, wrong person.
Yeah.
But, the fact that she was already doing so well makes it even more sad, I guess.
Yeah.
Because she was just on the verge of, like, really making it.
Yeah, it really makes you think about those what-if moments in life, doesn't it?
It really does.
But let's get into what happened.
Okay.
So it's April 1990. Jamie's about to start this new job,
Mm-hmm.
and she decides to take a quick trip down to Phoenix to visit a friend for Easter.
Okay.
And originally she was going to drive back with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
but at the last minute, those plans fell through.
Uh-oh.
So even though it's like a 7-hour drive back to L.A., she decides to just go for it by herself
Wow.
because, she had to be back for her first day at work.
Dedicated. That detail about her driving alone is huge,
Yeah.
Because Jamie was always responsible and kept in touch, especially with Brian.
Yeah.
That wasn't like her at all.
No, it wasn't. And Brian was waiting for her back at her apartment.
Right.
In fact, he even heard somebody come in late that night, like keys jingling, door opening.
Mhm.
So he just figured, oh, it's Jamie.
Yeah.
But then he wakes up the next morning and she's nowhere to be found.
And that's when all the warning bells start going off, right?
Yeah.
Because Brian said things in the apartment were messed up. Like, stuff was missing. Things were moved around.
Yeah.
Almost like someone was getting ready to leave in a hurry.
Oh, wow.
He just had that gut feeling that something was really, really wrong.
Yeah, like when you walk into a room and you know something's off, but you can't put your finger on it.
Exactly.
So Brian and his friends, they immediately call the cops
Yeah.
to report a burglary and that Jamie was missing.
Of course.
And here's the frustrating part. The cops didn't want to file a missing persons report right away.
Oh, no.
They said it was too soon
Oh, man.
and that she's an adult. She can be out of touch if she wants.
This is what's so tough with these missing person cases. It's like, you got to figure out when to really jump into action.
Exactly.
Those first few hours are so important, and then you've got all this bureaucracy in the way.
Yeah.
It's just, I can't imagine how frustrating that is for the people trying to find their loved one.
It's got to be awful. It's like this agonizing weight. You feel like nobody's taking you seriously.
Awful.
But Jamie's family, thankfully, they didn't just sit around.
Good.
They were proactive. They were driving along I-10, which is the road Jamie took from Phoenix,
Right.
putting up flyers everywhere, looking for any clue.
Oh, wow.
They even started getting tips from truckers and other drivers who thought they might have seen Jamie or her car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Those tips, even if they didn't immediately lead to anything, were still helpful because it helped the investigators like narrow down the search area.
Yeah.
And it shows how powerful it is when the community gets involved.
Yeah, it shows how people come together in times of crisis.
Yeah.
Now, meanwhile, back in L.A., Detective Pina takes over the case.
Okay.
This guy was a veteran, known for doing things a little differently, and he had this pretty bold idea.
What's that?
Billboards.
Billboard.
Using billboards to try and get leads.
That's pretty clever.
You don't see that every day in a missing person case, do you?
You know, back then in 1990, before we had all this internet and social media,
Right.
billboards were still a big way to reach a lot of people.
Yeah.
Showed that he was willing to think outside the box.
Yeah.
Use whatever he could.
And you want to know the best part?
What?
The billboards worked.
Wow.
A huge tip came in from someone who said they remembered seeing Jamie's blue VW Beetle on the side of the road with the hood up.
The hood up.
Yeah, and remember the engines in the back of those Beetles, so it was like pretty noticeable.
Yeah, you don't see that every day.
And here's the part that really freaked everyone out.
Oh, no.
This witness also saw a red VW Beetle behind Jamie's car.
Okay.
And a couple who seemed to be helping her.
Oh, so that's where the mystery starts.
Yeah.
Were they just being nice, or was this the beginning of something bad?
It's a question that just sticks with you, right?
It really does.
Like, were they good Samaritans or were they something much worse?
Right.
And weeks turn into a month. The search for Jamie keeps going. And sadly, on May 12, 1990, a farm worker makes a horrible discovery.
Oh.
In a citrus grove in Indio, California, he finds a body in a ditch.
Oh.
It was so decomposed that they had to use dental records to identify her.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was Jamie.
Ugh, that's awful.
So with the body in such bad shape, it's hard to tell exactly what happened.
Yeah, I bet.
But they did find some clues.
Okay.
Like they found green shotgun shell casings near the body. And Jamie's jaw was broken in 3 places.
Oh, gosh.
And get this, one of her hands was missing.
Oh, wow.
Which they think means she might have tried to fight back.
Yeah, it's a terrifying picture. It's pretty clear Jamie met a violent end.
Yeah.
This must have been just devastating for her family, especially Brian, just all that guilt and all those questions.
Yeah.
It's going to be awful.
And for over a year, despite all that evidence, the case goes cold.
So those shell casings and her missing hands, those are big clues, but they didn't lead to any suspects right away.
Right.
And that mystery of the couple in the red Beetle is still out there, too.
Yeah.
It's like, it hit a dead end.
Then, out of nowhere, a completely unrelated investigation hundreds of miles away in Fresno, California,
Oh, wow.
leads to a major break in the case.
Really?
So it's August 1991. The police are searching through cars at a salvage yard as part of an auto theft investigation.
Oh, okay.
And you might be thinking, what does this have to do with Jamie?
Yeah, I'm a little lost.
Well, they find a black VW Beetle that was originally blue
Okay.
with a VIN number that had been messed with.
Mm.
And when they trace it back, guess who it belongs to?
Jamie.
Jamie Buoie.
Wow. So those little details, like the make and model of the car, are suddenly super important.
Yeah.
It goes to show you that being really thorough in one case can totally change another.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
Yeah. It's amazing how those connections popped up.
Totally.
So now they got to figure out, how did Jamie's car end up in Fresno, hundreds of miles away from where she disappeared?
Right.
Detective Pina, always thinking ahead, decides to hold a press conference.
Okay.
And he releases a photo of the car to the media,
Right.
asking anyone with information to come forward.
Smart.
Yeah, again, Detective Pina using the media to his advantage.
Absolutely.
Because back then, a story like this could really capture the public's attention. It was risky, but it could pay off big time.
Yeah.
And guess what? It did.
No way.
Yeah, the tip line blew up. Someone called in and said they recognized the car, saying that their neighbor had it sitting in his yard for a month.
Wow. They were getting somewhere.
Yeah, now we're talking.
Yeah.
This is a big deal because now they can start tracking who had the car.
Oh, yeah.
So they talked to the neighbor, and he admits he stole the car.
Okay.
But he makes a deal. He'll give him info in exchange for immunity. And this is where things get even more interesting. He tells the cops he took the car to a mechanic
Okay.
who specialized in VW Beetles to swap out the engine.
Okay.
And the mechanic, he remembers the car, and more importantly, he remembers the couple who sold it to him.
The couple.
Billy Ray Riggs and his wife, Hilda.
This is huge.
And here's the kicker. Hilda, the wife, She drove up to the mechanic shop in a red VW Beetle.
Wait a minute, a red VW Beetle?
Red VW Beetle.
Like the one the witness saw behind Jamie's car.
Exactly. Starting to see how it all fits together. Right?
Oh, wow.
Like what seemed like a random detail way back then now links this couple to Jamie and her car.
It shows you that even the tiniest details can be important.
Absolutely. So investigators start digging into Billy Ray Riggs and Hilda.
Yeah.
And what they find is seriously scary. Riggs had a long rap sheet.
Yeah.
Accusations of killing his own brother, convictions for kidnapping and rape, even known gang ties.
Oh, wow. This guy sounds dangerous.
Yeah, like seriously bad news. So Detective Panna, knowing they got to move fast, decides to feature the couple on America's Most Wanted.
Oh, smart move.
Yeah.
Back then, America's Most Wanted was huge.
Yeah.
And it was really good at catching fugitives.
It was. It was like casting a net across the whole country and asking everyone to help catch these people.
Yeah.
And you know what?
What? It worked.
But a tip came in about their location in L.A.
Oh, wow.
But by the time the police got to their apartment,
Uh-oh.
they were gone.
They got away.
But there were signs they were just there minutes before.
Like,
Warm Chinese food on the table. And the TV was tuned to guess what?
America's Most Wanted.
America's Most Wanted.
Oh, my gosh. They were watching themselves on TV.
Talk about a close call.
Oh, it's like something out of a movie. Makes you wonder if they saw themselves on the show and just bolted.
Yeah. But luckily, they didn't get away for long.
Good.
A week later, the LAPD finally caught Billy Ray and Hilda.
Great.
They tried to question Riggs, but he wouldn't talk.
Figure.
But Hilda, on the other hand, she started talking.
Okay.
Right there on the way to jail, she started telling the investigator driving her what happened.
Wow.
And this is where the case takes this crazy turn.
Oh.
Okay, so police had a lot of evidence linking the couple to Jamie's car and her stuff.
Yeah.
But they needed someone to actually say what happened.
Of course.
So when Hilda confessed, it opened up a whole new chapter in this investigation.
That's incredible.
And what she revealed is seriously creepy. But we'll get into the details of Hilda's confession in part 2 of our deep dive. So stay tuned, because things are about to get even wilder.
So we left off with Hilda spilling the beans on the way to jail. Her confession gives us a look into what happened that day. But it also makes you wonder about what her role was in all this.
Yeah, it's a scary thought, right? Thinking that something as simple as helping someone with car trouble could turn into something so horrible. I mean, I've stopped to help people before. I bet you have too. But like, how do you know who to trust?
That's exactly what's so unsettling about this whole thing. We're always told, be careful who you talk to, trust your gut. But then you have a case like this, makes you realize that bad people can be anywhere.
Right. They don't always look like, scary criminals.
Exactly. You never know what someone's really thinking.
And Hilda says that at first, it was all pretty innocent. She and Riggs, they saw Jamie having trouble with her car, and they stopped to help. Riggs even told her he was a mechanic, and he fixed her car, like a couple of times as they were driving along.
Really?
Yeah, it's like he was trying to make her feel safe before he, showed his true colors.
Classic tactic, man. That's what manipulators do. Make you feel comfortable so you let your guard down.
Exactly. Makes you second guess everything,
Oh, yeah.
But as the day went on, according to Hilda, Riggs started acting different. He decided he wanted to rob Jamie.
Oh, no.
And since she had seen their faces, he figured he had to kill her.
This just gets worse and worse. You can tell this was all planned out, not just some spur-of-the-moment thing.
Yeah. Like he had a history of violence, so this wasn't like a one-time thing.
That's scary.
So they have dinner that night, and then later, Riggs pulls a gun on Jamie. Although Hilda said it wasn't even a real gun.
Oh, wow.
He makes Jamie get in the back of her own car, tells Hilda to grab a shotgun from their car.
Oh, geez.
And off they go. They even tried to use Jamie's ATM card, but she only had a few bucks in her account.
Really? Wow, so they put her through all that for just a few dollars.
I know. It's crazy. Like the money didn't even matter.
Yeah.
It was all about control.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anyway, they end up driving towards Indio, and Riggs tells Hilda to stop the car on this dirt road.
Okay.
He gets out with Jamie, tells Hilda to turn the car around, and then she hears 2 gunshots.
Hilda's story is so vivid.
I know.
You can just picture what Jamie went through. It's awful.
Then after that, according to Hilda, they drove back to L.A.
Right.
and even tried to get into Jamie's apartment using her keys.
Oh, wow.
That explains why Brian thought he heard her coming home that first night.
Yeah.
They came back the next day to steal her stuff, Probably to try and make it look like she just took off or something.
Man, that's just cold. Like they wanted to pretend she never even existed.
Yeah. But what about Hilda? Where does she fit into all this? She claims that she only did what Riggs said because he was abusive and she was scared of him.
Okay.
And the police did find evidence that supported her claims of abuse.
Like what?
They found some of Jamie's belongings and records from a pawn shop where they had sold some of her stuff.
Mm.
So it gets kind of complicated now, right? Was she really involved or was she a victim too?
Yeah, that's always the tough question with domestic violence cases, you know?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell who's really pulling the strings. Hilda confessing helped put Riggs away, but it also made people question if she should be punished too.
It's a really tough situation. Like, you want to believe she was just scared, but she also played a part in this horrible thing.
Exactly. Domestic violence is a big problem, and it affects everyone involved.
And sometimes it's hard for the victims to leave, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
It's important to understand that when you're trying to figure out what happened.
I agree. So in this case, the prosecutor had to decide what to do about Hilda.
Right.
They ended up offering her a deal.
A deal.
Yeah, she would testify against Riggs, and in exchange, she would get 25 years in prison.
It seems like they do that a lot in cases with multiple suspects, right?
Yeah, it happens pretty often. If they don't have enough evidence, they'll get one person to cooperate to make sure the other one gets convicted.
And Hilda's testimony was probably crucial in showing that Riggs had planned this whole thing.
Most likely. It was a gamble, but it could give Jamie's family some peace.
And then, just when you think this story couldn't get any crazier, the trial takes a wild turn.
What happened?
Riggs decides to represent himself.
He did.
Yeah, which a lot of times means they think they can fool the system.
Oh, wow. Like they think they're smarter than everyone else.
Exactly. And to make things even worse, Riggs tries to blame Hilda for killing Jamie.
Why?
Yeah, he said that he had nothing to do with it, that Hilda was the mastermind.
Oh, come on.
It was a desperate move to save himself and make the jury doubt everything.
That's crazy. It must have been awful for Brian to sit through that.
Oh, I can't even imagine. Hearing your sister's killer twisting the story like that, it's got to be heartbreaking.
And on top of all the legal stuff, it's easy to forget that this is about a young woman whose life was stolen. Yeah.
Jamie's story reminds us that behind all the headlines and court cases, there's a real person who's gone.
Absolutely. But despite Riggs trying to game the system, justice was served.
That's good.
The jury saw through his lies, and he was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death. Hilda got her 25 years.
Wow. I mean, they finally got what they deserved, but you still got to wonder why.
I know. Why, Jamie? Why did this have to happen? It's these questions that haunt the people left behind.
Absolutely. It's just a reminder that bad things can happen to anyone, anywhere.
It's so random. Jamie just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It makes you think, do we become more suspicious of everyone?
Right.
Or do we just try to live our lives and hope for the best?
That's a tough one. But maybe the most important thing to remember from Jamie's story is that we should cherish every moment.
I agree.
Appreciate the people we love. Live our lives to the fullest, you know.
Well said. This deep dive has really taken us through the ringer. From the horrible crime itself to all the twists and turns of the legal system, it really has. It's a case that makes you think about the best and worst parts of humanity.
Yeah. But it also shows the strength of love and family, how they fought for Jamie even when it seemed hopeless.
That's true. It's proof that even in the darkest times, there's still light and hope.
Well said. We're not done yet, though. In the final part of our deep dive, we're going to step back and look at the bigger picture. What does Jamie's story tell us about the world, about ourselves, and about the choices we make when faced with good and evil? We've gone through everything, from the investigation to Hilda's confession to that crazy trial.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride.
But now that we're wrapping up our deep dive into Jamie's story, I keep coming back to, like, the bigger questions. Like, what does this whole thing tell us about the world we live on? What happens after the court case is over? You know?
It definitely makes you think, that's for sure.
It does.
One thing that really gets to me is that Jamie's story, while it's obviously unique, also kind of shows some bigger problems in society. I mean, she was a young woman, new to the city, alone on this long drive, car breaks down.
Right.
It's like the perfect recipe for someone to take advantage.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder how many other people are out there in similar situations, you know, trying to make their way in a world that's full of both good and bad.
It's scary, but it's also like a wake-up call.
Yeah, totally.
We got to be more aware, more careful, and maybe more understanding of people who might be going through something tough.
I agree. And this case also shows just how important the police and the community are in keeping people safe.
Yeah.
I mean, Detective Pena using billboards and America's Most Wanted, and then all those tips from the public.
Right.
It just shows you what can happen when people work together and think outside the box.
Those were some pretty unusual tactics back then,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
but they really worked.
Mm.
Makes you think maybe we could use technology and community connections even more to solve crimes, especially those cold cases.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Technology keeps changing, so who knows what we'll be able to do in the future.
Right.
But it's not just about gadgets and stuff, it's also about building stronger communities
Right.
where people feel comfortable reporting suspicious stuff and looking out for each other.
Exactly.
Ah,
And speaking of community, we can't forget how much this whole thing affected Jamie's family and friends,
of course not.
especially Brian.
Yeah.
Their fight for justice for Jamie, keeping her memory alive,
Mm-hmm.
it's powerful. It shows you the strength of love and loyalty.
It's amazing how resilient they were.
It is.
And the fact that Brian was willing to share his sister's story, to talk about the pain and how long it took to heal,
Mhm.
says a lot about him.
Yeah.
He wants to make sure Jamie isn't forgotten.
And it's a good reminder for all of us that even when things are really bad, there's still hope, there's still love, and you can still find meaning and purpose.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Jamie's life might have ended too soon, but her story shows us that even in the darkest times, there's still good in the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This deep dive has taken us through a lot.
It has.
Sadness, anger, even a little bit of hope.
It's a case that makes you think about what it means to be human, you know?
It does.
About how precious life is and how we try to find meaning even when bad things happen.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even when we're busy with our own lives, there are these stories happening all around us.
Right.
Stories about loss, resilience, fighting for justice, and learning from it all.
And as we wrap this up, we hope you keep Jamie's story with you.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what it all means and how you would deal with a world where good and bad are always mixing together.
Yeah, may her memory inspire us to really live, to look out for each other, and to never lose hope.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's made you think and maybe even given you a fresh perspective on your own life.